Well, hello everyone and welcome again to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Today's conversation is with the guest speaker, Dame Stephanie Shirley. She'll be telling us about her journey from refuge, entrepreneur to philanthropy. Not an easy one, difficult and painful journey along the way, but she'll be sharing that with us. Before we get started, let me tell you a little quote of hers, which I really love. I see each unknown tomorrow as an opportunity. We waste time being afraid, when what we should really fear is wasting time. There is an amazing quote by her. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Today's guest is Dame Stephanie Shirley. She's a philanthropist with an unrelenting energy for creating positive change. She arrived in England as an unaccompanied child refuge at the start of the Second World War, and in 1962 started a software business from her dining table, which she grew to employ 8,500 people and was ultimately valued at almost $3 billion. Motivated to share the reward of her success with society that has extended such generosity to her as a child, Dame Stephanie decided to give away her wealth. Now in her late 80s, she's driven by a lifetime of extraordinary experiences and achievements, and she's dedicated every day to making her life one that's worth saving. Today's conversation will really be looking at her life from the beginning, how she got started, overcame those pains and really tragic experiences, to finding her joy, being a mother, a woman, an entrepreneur, and dealing with her child who was autistic, balancing motherhood and parenting and business. Not easy. We'll be talking as well about her book, Let It Go, why she wrote this memoir, what we hope to gain from it, marvelous book, and how that will inspire so many women, children, men as well, that you could be anything you want to be if you truly set your mind to it. Well, I'm honored and I can't wait to introduce you. Meet my amazing guest, Dame Stephanie Shirley, as she shares her story. Well, everyone, welcome again to Painless Universal, conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. As I said in my introduction, today's conversation is really one I will inspire you, encourage you to listen to, because it's a conversation of true humble beginnings, becoming something that everyone can't believe, that someone from humble beginnings, being a refuge, entrepreneur, to becoming a philanthropist, my guest is an amazing woman, and she'll be sharing her story, her journey, her book, Let It Go, why she wrote this book, and how this book will help you. Dame Stephanie Shirley, how are you?
Thank you, Anne. Lovely start to I hope, a vital conversation, a vivid conversation, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. How are you doing today? So it's good.
I'm doing fine. I'm an evening person, really, a night owl, but I'll do my best in the morning. What time is this program going out?
It's going out at 8 p.m. normally.
Oh, evening.
So, yeah, it's not a morning then, so it fits your kind of schedule well. I'm really delighted to have this conversation with you. I know how busy your schedule is, Stephanie, but you are truly an icon for many, many, many people, many women out there, especially in today's world where women have been seeing this change, but in reality, change is not really happening. But you have told us it can be done. Before we get started into all of this, who are you?
Well, I would describe myself as a somewhat priggish tech entrepreneur turned philanthropist.
That's amazing. Wow. And when someone looks at your life, you always said, you start with this sentence, my life wasn't supposed to be interesting. It started perfectly in Germany. Could you share your early memories? I know it's very, very far back.
Well, I left Germany when I was 5, so the memories that I have tend to be childish ones. One that is relevant to, I think, this conversation is we were in Dortmund, which is noted for its famous parks and beautiful surroundings. And we were on a family walk, my father, my mother, myself, and my sister, who was 4 years older. And it was just a picnic or something like that. And for some reason, I stamped on a beetle. And my father absolutely exploded. Most incredible reaction from an adult to a 5-year-old. How would you like it if a great big foot came down and stamped on you, he said. I can remember it sort of 80 years later. And I was duly put in my place, but that tended to give me my moral compass. Started quite early with things like that. I have never, ever killed anything since.
Wow. Oh, unbelievable. That experience left you with this memory that,
yes.
Wow, I'm really, really inspired to know how such a influence left that mark on you. Then at 5, you left Germany for England, and with the only person you love, your 9-year-old sister, who was there as a companionship with you. What memories of that event when you decided to leave Germany to England?
I mean, it was a very interesting time historically, but of course, all the things I remember are the childish things. I can remember the little boy who kept being sick, you know, literally he was sick about 6 times on the journey. I can remember losing my doll, one of the few precious things that I was carrying, because we had only what we could carry with us. And sleeping on strips of corrugated cardboard on the floor, on the benches, and believe it or not, in the overhead luggage racks. These are memories that are really quite strategic as far as I'm concerned, because my life really started in 1939. And many times I've actually given my date of birth as 1939, which is a sort of Freudian slip, because life changed so much. And after that 2.5-day journey, I was with a new family, in a new country, with a new language, new culture, new food, new everything. And it was such a traumatic change that it has made me really what I am, Anne. It's not just the memories, which are muted over the years, but the fact that I was conscious that when I got to England, well-meaning people said to me things like, "Aren't you lucky to be saved? Aren't you lucky to be saved?" And indeed, I was lucky to be saved from the Nazi Holocaust, and I'm very conscious of that. But what it's done for me is that if I can deal with those sorts of changes, I can deal with any change. And I've learned to love change, and that's important in the digital world. And again, partly from what people were saying to me when I was 6 or 7, I really became determined to lead a life that was worth saving. And that's why I say I'm a bit of a prig. I do try to make each day count. I do try to make my life worth living, and something is a marker in society.
I love that, Dame. You really are really a good change. You've inspired us in so many different ways with your life story, and there's something that really captivates me, especially when anyone who reads your book, is that you wanted to escape poverty when you came to the United Kingdom, because you saw the poverty going on, and your family, you came from a very good family. Your father, I think he was a lawyer, and you lived in a big home. And all of a sudden, you're now living in the United Kingdom, and you're now living in a different world in poverty. And you believe that doing well in school was a great start to get going.
I think it was drummed into me also, Anne. You know, you must do well at school. You must do well at school. And I was a bright child. And to be honest, I love learning. I love to learn. And so that was no hardship. But so I always was setting targets for myself as to I was going to be the first or the second in the class, usually the first. And I'm a prig.
You decided against, at 18, you decided against going to university. A decision you still regret today. Could you explain, because a lot of youngsters out there are still in that decisiveness, especially now you said with the change of the world, with technology. Why do you regret that bit about not going into university at 18?
Well, it's a part of one's life that should be a joyful part of one's youth, early, mature life. I would have enjoyed 3 years at college. It's halfway between being a child and being grown up. I would have enjoyed that, and other people make friends for life from college. So I really miss not having gone to college for personal reasons, but also professionally. I know that I cannot analyze and structure the work that I do in the same way as other graduates can, who perhaps don't work as hard as I do, but somehow have been taught how to present their ideas. They're able to talk about, well, there are 3 things that are really important here, or there's 7 things that I would like to say here. And the whole structure misses me out. I'm an entrepreneur. I dash around in all directions. And that's part of my character, but it's partly because I haven't been educated. On the other hand, I think had I been to university, it might have dampened some of my innovation because nobody has taught me what one's not supposed to do. So I go ahead and do it. And that means that I have been able to innovate in a number of spheres, and I'm very proud of that. And it's, oh, let's stop there.
Yeah, oh no. So Dame Stephanie, you buried so much pain, because this conversation is a lot about pain and how living with pain and finding your joy, but you've buried so much pain. But you decided along the way to let your conscious mind So you decided to let your conscious mind focus on the positive side of your story rather than look at the negative. You've always done this, where you channel your energy to the positive side. How did you achieve that? Because that's so difficult.
As always, one achieves very little by oneself. And in that aspect, I was enormously helped by 6 years of Kleinian analysis at the renowned Tavistock Clinic in London. And that really brought me face to face with my survivor guilt, the feeling that I should have died, the feeling that I needed to justify that I didn't die. These are things that go right back to that Kindertransport years.
Yeah, that's really. So the love for computer, when did that all start, and how did you get into it? You're a woman, how did you get into computing?
Well, I was aiming to be the world's greatest mathematician. And I was going to solve something called Fermat's last theorem, which it took another 40 years for somebody did actually solve it. But the whole idea of mathematics appealed to me. The music that I like is mathematical and rhythmic, and a lot of Bach. I really wanted to focus on mathematics and the pure mathematics side, not the applied maths. But at 18, I soon discovered that I really didn't have it in me to contribute at a research level in that way. And luckily for me, the computer industry came along and I just grabbed it. It was like falling in love again. It was just so exciting, such opportunity, so different, so manageable in that you could work on a computer for half an hour, you could work on a computer for half a year. And it was always exciting, always getting improved and better. And there's no finishing line you're always doing something new. And so the computer industry really made my professional life. I was just so lucky in my timing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also came with a problem. The more you got at this, the more good, the more perfect you became. There was that issue where there was because you became a serious woman doing this work. You became violated in every sense because people were resenting you. People didn't want you to move ahead, but you didn't let this pain continue. You bounced back. Can you explain how, when people were resenting you, how you managed to navigate yourself as you were talking about this idea of the computing world?
I learned to let some of it just wash off me. I almost ignored it. I learned to go around obstacles rather than beating my head all the time. Find different ways, go over, go under, go around, go elsewhere, which is what I did when I started my company. I also learned a little bit of cunning in that, for example, in my first job, my boss, who was a good boss, wouldn't put me up for promotion. He didn't believe in women going up the career ladder. We were fine at the junior levels, and he just wouldn't put me up. So what I did was I applied for the job as an external candidate and merely said that I already worked at that place, and I got the job. So it was a question always of going around and finding ways that you could make the unacceptable acceptable.
That is truly believable, so remarkable. Many today find it hard to balance career and marriage. You've also struggled with this, or you've had to raise your son who was autistic. What stress did you put on you when you were balancing a career and home life?
Well, many people have asked how I managed to deal with the stresses and strains of doing two jobs, both of which were considered to be pretty full-time, rearing a very difficult, complex child with autism, and running a small startup on basically a shoestring. But to a certain extent, the two balanced each other. The only time I forgot my son Giles was when I was working on computers, and the only time I forgot my professional work, I am a workaholic, was when I was with my son. And that lasted for several years. And then when he was 13, it all got on top of me, and I had a good old-fashioned breakdown in hospital for a month, off work for a year, which is a long time, and came back realizing that I had to manage the stress in a different way. And since then, I've considered stress much more seriously. I always make sure that I know colleagues' home situation, so that if there's a double stress from work and also from home, one's conscious of, because that's when things go wrong. I've really learned to have a certain healthy selfishness that I do now look after myself, my mind, body, and spirit, in order to keep going in a world that is quite harsh and doesn't get easier with time.
I'm so glad that you said that, because this is true of today's world. And it's absolutely so busy. Everyone keeps going. We forget to take that time out for ourselves to actually say, am I really healthy? Am I okay? What should I be going? If I go back to your career life, your plan has always been described as mad. You've been laughed at in your face. people just said, you're a woman, are you sure you're doing this thing? But nevertheless, you've always been determined to keep going. As a woman, what kept you going?
I think it's just my general cussedness, that the more people tell me that I'm unsuited for a certain job, or I can't do this, the more I want to do it. And so I'm going against the stream. I'm going along the path less traveled. And so I make I make a lot of mistakes, but I also do make some progress.
What advice would you give to any woman listening right now who is struggling with that fact of trying to be successful in a man's world? What advice would you give to your younger self or women out there?
Well, there are some successful sort of formulae. Some women succeed in a male world by aping men's work styles. They become transactional oriented. They forget about the 3 dimensions of people's personality. It's all money, money, money. And you can survive in that sort of environment. We all of us have to maintain a sort of professional standard. And I used to think professional meant sort of very high, very clever. Actually, professional means never letting your work fall below an acceptable level. And that's even more challenging. And I think also women in particular have to, at all times, present a professional facade that we really can't be seen in little puffed sleeves dresses that make us look very pretty, but it doesn't make you look like a serious business person. And I think women have to learn to walk that line between aping men's lifestyles, aping the way in which they dress. I mean, I used to wear a grey costume and a white blouse. I mean, a very typical sort of masculine garb. Simply so that I could merge into the plethora of men who were surrounding me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You're famously called Steve. Can you share the story behind that name?
Well, I'm a Stephanie, and I was largely in my company doing the marketing side. And I was writing about a dozen letters a week to prospective customers, introducing my company's services. And they weren't particularly good letters, but they weren't particularly bad letters. The fact is that they got no reply whatsoever. And my late husband suggested that I use the family nickname of Steve rather than Stephanie. So instead of writing a sort of Stephanie Shirley, that double feminine, I just wrote as Steve Shirley. And surprise, surprise, I began to get some responses to my letters and began to get some meetings, and I had a good story to tell, so began to get some work. So it was very important to me, that dissembling, that putting a facade, that all it did was it just got me through the door. Once I was through the door, I had to cope. But to break through, to be the first, doesn't mean you have to be the only person there. You're the first, so you started off. And I'm very conscious that I've opened the door for so many people, both with gender, but also in the field of autism, which is where I work these days. I have a lovely lifestyle, but it is different to how most people would imagine retirement would be.
Yeah, you're still busy, which is something.
I'm very busy.
You're still busy, and I don't think you're ever going to put the retirement thing up.
Well, I think I'm lucky to have something to get up for each morning. You know, I've got real things to do.
That is true. That is true. I think that keeps you youthful as well. In your company, you've always had this philosophy to motivate others and make them achieve the impossible. What led you on that path on really helping others? Because that's one thing you really stand for, is helping others.
I think it's partly how I was brought up. You've got to earn your place in the world. But that was definitely accentuated by my refugee start, where I really felt I needed to justify my survival, make my life a worthy life. And that hasn't really left me. I don't fritter my time away. I do very little that people would consider to be casual. Or I enjoy work. Work is not just something I do when I'd rather be doing something else, but what I do is work. And I have enormous satisfaction from my work, and aim always to be better than I was last week. I am a perfectionist. I really try to do the very best I can. And that, of course, can involve me in a lot of studying and practicing and so on.
So Dame Stephanie, you have this famous quote, giving is a social and cultural activity, not merely a financial transaction. Can you explain what that means?
Can I start by describing the difference between charity and philanthropy? And I'm a philanthropist. If you give some small change to a street person, that's a generous act of charity. But once you start thinking, what is this person doing on the street? Why is he not in a hostel? Why is she not in a job? Then you start thinking like a philanthropist and thinking of solutions rather than bits of elastoplast just to give somebody money for a cup of coffee. If you approach somebody in the street and give them big money, perhaps, that's a financial transaction. But much more important is if you stop and talk with the person, have a social interaction, find out how they're feeling, how they're going, how's the business going, how the magazine's selling, to really interact with them at a human level. And that is just as important as any money that you may give them.
Yeah.
It's
I agree.
Quite easy to, I mean, I've been patronized for so, which is probably why I feel conscious about it. But, you know, it's quite difficult to give serious money, and I've given a lot of money away, without patronizing the beneficiaries. And so you have to either do so anonymously or do so in a way that it is a reciprocal relationship. I get as much from my giving as I give to other people. I have a wonderful lifestyle, makes me very happy.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad, because it's true. And we have this thing where, you know, you teach a guy how to feed, you either give him the fish or you teach him how to fish. So it's like you go either way. And I always say to them, I always prefer the option of teaching one how to do something, because that life skills and that stays with them for a very long time. You have established a residential home for the autistic people called Autistic at Kingswood. That is a beautiful place, and that helps so many people who are going through that struggle of autistic, of even not knowing how to help their loved ones going through that pain. I know your son was diagnosed, and this gives you that passion. What else led you on this path to create this help for others who are going through that deep pain?
Well, there was a crying need for some support for people who were at that time in mental health hospitals. And there's still over 1,000 people in mental health hospitals who are not ill in any way. They are autistic or have some other, not disability, but have some other condition that means that they need a tremendous amount of support. And hospital is not the right place for them. So my son was in hospital for 11 years, and eventually I decided I really wanted him out of hospital. He wasn't sectioned, so I could actually take him out. And that really grew into, it took me 6 years to deinstitutionalize him. And then I realized that while I was looking after him with paid staff, I could look after a couple of other people in the same house that I bought for him. And so it grew fairly organically from that. It became a charity, and we called it Autism at Kingwood. Kingwood is a place near where we live. It now serves 5 English counties. It does diagnosis services. It employs over 300 staff. It looks after 24/7 some 150 people, and then keeps a weekly overview of another 100 people with complex autism who manage to live independently, but need help on a, not daily basis, but on a weekly basis. So I'm very proud of it. It cost a lot in nervous energy as well as funding, and I hadn't got much money when I set it up. So it was a question of drip feeding money as I got some. I can remember, 100,000 here, 50,000 there, here's another 25,000, just to sort of keep it going. And now it turns over, I don't know, 8 million or something a year. I'm enormously proud of it, and it's just wonderful to see what those early years of painful development have provided. It's now a quality service that's established. It contributes to the national good. It contributes to national policy papers. I couldn't be more proud of it. And again, there is no finish because people are coming in slowly. It's 150 now. A few years' time, you'll be asking me, and I'll still say, oh no, it's 250 now.
Unbelievable. I have to talk about your book, Let It Go. I know this is book, Let It Go. It is an amazing book, Let It Go, and I really love it. I said, before we got started,
thank you.
I read it numerous times, and I got it for my family.
It has been published also in Germany. In German, and a Spanish edition is in progress.
Wow!
So it's getting well known.
And I hope it's in the US as well, so people, because I know I'm based in the United Kingdom, but I'm sure people in the United States and around the world who want to read this book. Let It Go. Could you just tell us a brief synopsis about this book?
I can't make it brief because this is basically the story of my life. It is a memoir, not an autobiography. And the difference is that I write about a selection of things that had some emotional content for me. I don't write on Thursday, the 17th of July, I met with the Prime Minister or whatever it might be. It does mention some of the high-profile activities I've been involved in, but it's much more about the joys and tribulations of building a business without any capital behind you, the fun that you have, and it is fun, building it up into a solid corporation, and at the same time remaining a human being. I'm glad you find it unputdownable. I rewrote the last 3 chapters a few years ago when Penguin published it, and I'm still pretty pleased with it.
I love the early beginnings. Actually, it's one of my favorite because I think that talks a lot about pain, your North London beginnings, and how you really transpired and went through. There's lots of you talk a lot about a lot of pain, but you also talk about so much joy, how you navigated your way.
Yes, the pain came in rather unexpected, or unexpected to me, ways. And it's something to do with loyalty. In the very early years of the business, I had what's called a breakaway group, and that's a group of staff who broke away from the company and did precisely the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but they took with them the knowledge of the work that we were bidding on. They took with them the knowledge that the prices that we had offered, or so on. And it was done in a very nasty way with people accessing information that they shouldn't have, and so on. I think we shouldn't really go there. Let's try something else.
Yeah, let's find something else. Because that's a beautiful story, because that really emphasized that there is always pain, but at the end of it all, what is meant for you has always come back to you, and you have gone on to be recognized. You are appointed member of the Order of the Champion of Honors, CH, in 2017, a membership limited to only 65 individuals globally for your services to IT industry and philanthropy. You are, you've got the OB, you're Dame in the United Kingdom, you're recognized. What reflection, when you look at all your honors list, can you take from all of this, all your achievements?
The thing that I'm most proud of is having taken my company into a co-ownership. Most people don't appreciate how important this is, but it was the biggest gift that I could give, in a way. I have one more big gift still to give, and that is the gift of my body for medical research. But to be able to give in that way is so emboldening. It's so exciting, not exciting, it's so comfortable to know that it is planned how I should finish.
A final question, Dame Stephanie, before I let you go. You are a beautiful age, and you are smiling, you are joyful. Most people are so scared to get older because they won't know what to do with themselves. But I'm looking at you and I'm just seeing, oh my goodness, I hope I'm like you when I get older. What advice would you give to anyone, any age, who are looking for that joy and wondering what to do with themselves when they get to your beautiful age?
I mean, one thing is to surround yourself with other people who you yourself like and who are joyful and who work in a cooperative way, so that you don't feel lonely. When things go wrong, you've got people to discuss problems with. Life is multifaceted. We wouldn't enjoy the pleasures if we didn't also have hardships in between. And that gives us a set of values that can drive our life. I mean, some people find support and vision from having different faiths. I don't have any faith, but I try to lead a spiritual life. And what do I mean by that? An emphasis on the non-material aspects, music, art, nature, animals, rather than things. Things are just stuff. They don't really matter. But the non-material aspects of life, the spiritual side, is very important to me and to the world.
Well, then, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate everything. I really appreciate your conversation. Anyone looking to buy Let It Go could get it. Where can they buy a copy? I got mine on Amazon. Where could they get a copy?
Thank you very much.